you can imagine what your life would be like if you didn't know what the next day was going to be. And that was going on and on and on and on and on, and you didn't know anything except what was going on that day. So that's loneliness. I mean, that's what we had, whatever you want to call it.
How did your life after the war compare to your life before the war?
Well, it was altogether different. I'd been in school. I was a kid growing up. And when I come back, I was a man. And we dated girls, and started thinking about marriage and all that sort of thing. I was married when I was 22. Lots of guys in the same boat. And some of the guys married, if they'd been over in Europe, they brought girls home from England and some Germans, and they married them. It was a lot. It was a totally different life. I mean, we were in the Depression when I was growing up. Nobody had anything. There was no money. There was everything had stopped. All the industry and everything, was shut right down. And after the war, people made money during the war working in these defense plants. They had a lot of money. Everybody was working. There was no unemployment. But one thing about the country in those days, there was no debt. The country wasn't in debt like we are now. But they were. Everybody was working during the war, so they earned money, and they had that money to spend when they come back from these defense plants, and even the servicemen. We didn't have any place to spend any money. We didn't. The most money I ever got paid overseas, that was with combat pay, and the whole thing was $98 a month. $98 a month. They got $21 when we first went in a month. But after they said we sent the money home. They just sent the money home for you because you had no way to spend it. So we all had a few dollars in our pockets, and people had made big money in those defense plants, and so they started building houses and having things, which was totally, the world came to life.
Was it hard to adjust back into normal life after being at war for so long?
Yeah, I think it was. Yeah, I think it was. I look back on it now, and I think it was. It was.
How?
How was it? Well, it's hard to describe. I mean, you go from the life that we were in the war to back out to civilian life. It's hard to describe. Hard to describe it. Put your finger on it.
What were your views on the world before and after the war?
I don't think I had much of a world view. The world was at war. Before, when I was in high school, the world was at war. And that was the view you had of it. You listen to your radio. The radios then would phase out. You'd be listening to it, and it would, the radios then wouldn't stay going good. They'd phase out, and they had those old tube radios. So you didn't get much information about the war, but it was going on in Europe, So our worldview mostly was geared to that. And I was in the Sea Scouts just before I went in the service, and we'd go around and pick up old tires and stuff for the war effort. Newspapers, they recycled everything, to use nylon. The women didn't have any nylon stockings because they used those for parachutes. They had to use those for the parachute shrouds. Mm-hmm. So they had to have the artificial, I don't know if they had, but they didn't have any nylons. All the nylon was being used. Everything was used for the military. My worldview after the war, worldview, I don't know, but I'm glad it was over. My real view was I was glad the war was over. Get on with our regular, some sanity to our life. I don't know what else to tell you about it.
If you could go back in time, what would you do differently?
What did I tell you before? I don't remember.
Oh, wasn't it go to the Boston Conservatory?
Oh yeah. Yeah, I think I probably would have gone to with the conservatory music. Yeah. If I had to do over. But we can't go back, can we? Yeah.
What did the military teach you about life?
Well, there's a lot of discipline involved in the military, and I think it stays with you most of your life. I don't think you ever get really. I think you get trained, so the training is difficult, and they try to make it difficult so that you'll know what discipline is, and it becomes a way of life after a while, and it makes you grow up. It makes you take things serious, and I think that stays with you.
All right. Well, thank you for doing this. It was really nice hearing your story.
You're welcome. You're welcome.